What do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God! No!
Would you gentlemen care to order your dinners?
Bet, babe. Slide a piece of the porter. Drinks, I run the job.
Look at here. I can lay grease and trumpet on some butter and drag him through the garden.
Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you doing? I'm Legal Vices, and we are here. It is part 2 of day 17 of closing arguments in the YNW Melly trial. The court has already started. They started just a few minutes, and they were on time. So we're a few minutes behind, but no worries. We'll catch up quickly, or we'll just finish a couple minutes behind. We'll talk as we go along as we're able. I'm tired AF. I got about 30 minutes of sleep, so let's pull this stream up and jump right into closing arguments for the defense.
The defense's counsel is this statement. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust you had a nice lunch. This is the defense counsel.
Yeah, we're a few minutes behind. We'll deal with it.
Please give Mr. Adelstein the courtesy and attention that you previously displayed to Ms. Bradley. Counsel, if you're ready, you may proceed.
Is he a principal or a shooter? That's what the state addressed you folks just a few moments ago before you went to lunch. And the reason they said that is because they don't even know. Otherwise, they would select either him being a principal or the one who caused the death of Williams and Thomas. It's that simple. Where is the fire? Was the message. They say it refers to guns.
Yeah,
That's
where's
your
the fire? Where's the fire? They went to the fire. They mean, like, is that
My
fire? That's a
interpretation,
fire song.
based upon the evidence,
does that
is
mean guns?
where's the weed?
Yeah, that was
The
stupid.
marijuana. That's the problem here, folks. They're interpreting it as opposed to calling these various people to tell you what they mean. They mentioned Frederick Gibbons, Frito Bang, Mariah Hamilton, Peasy, Patrick Deloach, Dontavius Withers.
Objection, Your Honor, Halliburton.
They opened the door.
Oh,
We don't have a burden. As the court told you in jury selection,
see, I think the black guy should have
the
gone with
burden
the
of proof
closing,
is
not him.
on the state. And the court told you during jury selection that this is a first-degree murder case.
Yeah.
Wherein the penalties are either life without the possibility of parole or death. You folks are going to determine this young man's fate. And they come in here and give you alternatives. They come in here and give you their interpretation when we don't have to do a darn thing. And that principle was so important that His Honor read you that instruction at the beginning when you were going through the process. That he just read it to you before the state got up and gave their opening and closing statement. He told you that this young man has pled not guilty.
Okay.
That means you have to presume him innocent.
Yes.
That means that that presumption stays with him until and if the state of Florida can prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
Okay.
The judge goes on to tell you and it's in your packet of jury instructions, that the defendant, YNW Melly, is not required to present any evidence or prove anything. So it's nice that they're interpreting these things, but the bottom line is they don't even know. Because they've given you just two alternatives. Either he's the shooter or the principal. Make up your mind. Tell these folks what it is.
I don't think this is as good as he thinks it is.
Now, how do you go about doing this? Well, the judge gave you an instruction on that. You're to look at the evidence that's been presented to you. Remember, we don't have to do a thing. All we have to do is show up and behave. Now, I don't know if I behaved totally correct during the course of this trial. So, on behalf of us, let me apologize if I have or we have offended any of you. And I would ask you.
Ooh, I think he knows he's been a little extra.
If I or any of the other individuals have done anything to irritate you, don't take it out on this young man. Still hold the burden of proof to this table. Now, why do they have the burden of proof? Because they are the state. They are the government. As we learned in this case, they have the police department of Miramar. They have the Broward Sheriff's Office. They have the DNA labs. They have experts, the FBI. They have everything at their disposal. And that's why our system of justice is different than anyone else in the world. We recognized a long time ago that when the government accuses somebody of a crime, they have the money, the resources, and the person power to attempt to prove to you all that a person has committed a crime beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. Now, how do you go about doing it? And before I get into that, first of all, let me also thank you, because we have interrupted your lives for it seems like months.
Almost.
And we have put a horrible burden on your personal lives, your family life, and what have you. And all of us applaud and thank you for your service. You folks have gone way beyond the call of duty.
Call of Duty.
And I think we all recognize that. But how do we go about determining, and I shouldn't say how do you folks go about determining if the state of Florida has proved their case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? Well, the judge just gave you that instruction. It is to the evidence introduced in this trial and to it alone that you are to look for that proof. Remember, we just got to show up. And how does a reasonable doubt occur? Well, the judge told you. It can come from the evidence itself, a conflict in the evidence, or a lack of evidence. You don't need all three of these areas. But I suggest to you folks that we have a reasonable doubt from the evidence that has been presented, that there is a conflict in the evidence, and there's a lack of evidence.
Okay, show us the
This
conflict
is
in the lack.
an unusual case, kind of like the medical examiners. The two medical examiners said it's unusual because normally you can't tell what shot occurred first, second, or third. And the chief medical examiner came in here, Dr. McDougall, I think, and told you it's only happened to her in her entire career, I think 2 or 3 times, that she could tell you which shot occurred first in this case. So, knowing that, let's look at what the state presented. But before we do that, we can agree upon a couple of things that are not in dispute. They said that Matt Melly is a talented music artist.
has not a fucking thing to do with the murder.
We agree with that. At
Not,
the age of 19,
has nothing to do with it. He's a good guy, so he wouldn't have killed
based
anybody.
upon
That's
the
the
evidence, he was making more money than probably everybody in this courtroom, including us. Number two. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, you okay? Usually, the judge stop me when needed. Number two is that Cortland Henry changed his clothes before he went to the hospital. That's what they said just 10 minutes ago. Number three, that there's absolutely no eyewitness that will implicate this young man to
Very
this
important
crime.
distinction. There's
These
no
crimes.
eyewitness, and there's no eyewitness that will implicate him. That's two very different things.
Number four,
Right, Portland? Right?
they talk about premeditation. I suggest to you there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever to show premeditation. And the last one that we absolutely agree with, and they admit it, the Miramar Police Department lacks the training. Those aren't my words. That was Miss Bradley just an hour ago saying. Not only did Miss Bradley say that, but Sergeant Williams also said they lacked the training in one of the worst investigations. That's why I pushed aside their reports. Now, the state produced over 100 exhibits sitting right here on the floor. Ms. Bradley made reference to some of them. They're all here. And I put them on this side of the podium because I suggest to you that this is a smoke screen. I suggest to you that this is open for anybody to interpret any way they want. When I say something sarcastic, you don't know if I'm serious or not. I can tell my colleague,
Be careful.
I hate your guts, and it could be joking, and I am joking.
You see, this guy doesn't know how to joke. That's his problem.
And that's what this case is, and that's all this evidence is.
That's not how sarcasm works.
Open
I hate your guts.
for
That's not
interpretation.
sarcastic. Oh, I hate your guts.
That's not
That's
evidence
sarcastic.
proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, I put on this side of the table, really the evidence that means something. There's one other exhibit, but it's on a little USB internet thing. And that is the video leaving the studio,
Okay.
showing the 2 cars and the 8 individuals that left. Sitting on this side of the table is the broken cell phone that Moretti could not tell you whose it was, and the 9807 phone that Melly uses, as other people do too. These are the 2 key pieces of evidence. These are what I suggest you focus in on, because you can take any one of these items, any one of these text messages, any one of these pinging on maps, and you still don't know what was said, what was meant, and more importantly, who said it. I leave my phone, and I'm sure you all, in the house, and my wife picks it up and sends a message. And it looks like it's coming from me. And sometimes she sends messages that I'm kind of shocked about.
What?
But you don't know.
What? What the?
So
what does
let's
it even
look
mean?
at, let's put the 100+ exhibits to aside for a moment. The state called 26 witnesses. I
Wow,
think
that
I
was a
counted.
lot.
And I suggest to you that you should look at 11 witnesses very carefully. And why do I say that? Because when you look at these 11 witnesses, you will find out that there's a conflict in the testimony, that there is a lack of testimony, and the third way is
He doesn't even
from the
remember what he
testimony
said.
itself. The first one that I would like to talk about well, before I talk about the first witness, I want you to remember one thing.
Oh, he's going to go
On
through
October 26th, that day of the shooting, we learned immediately that that Jeep was taken to a secure area. And it was searched for over 15 hours by 2 crime scene technicians.
Okay.
And you heard how they pulled out the evidence. They got some foam, some projectiles, I think a can, everything, and photographed the vehicle. Now, why is that important? Because that vehicle was searched. You okay? Want to take a break? That vehicle was searched again months later. But it didn't stop there.
Who raided
Because
us?
about 3 years later,
Who were the
miraculously,
Vikings?
even though it was
Ah, it's
searched
a Nicholas
for
raid.
hours
Okay.
by crime scene technicians, Sergeant Williams comes
I didn't know
into the
Nicholas
scene
did a
at the
stream. You
request
did a
of the
stream,
state of
Nicholas?
Florida,
All right.
this particular prosecutor right here.
Welcome, Nicholas people.
And miraculously, he finds additional evidence, 2 projectiles and a bloodstain that obviously everyone else missed. That should tell you something about the quality of this investigation.
Is he saying it was a bad
That
investigation
should
or they
give you a
planted
clue
evidence? He's
as to
hinting they
what's going
planted
on in
evidence.
this case.
I see. It should give
What
you a clue what's
happened
going
was-
on.
Once they got the surveillance tape of the individuals leaving the studio, they knew that Cortland Henry, Williams, Thomas, and this young man got into the Jeep. It's shown on the video. In the Mitsubishi were Adrian Davis, Patrick DeLoach, Trevon Glass, and I'm missing one other one. Withers, Dontavius Withers. And we know that on October 26th, when Moretti saw that surveillance,
His mother
Cortland
looks
Henry
like
identified all
younger
of
than
them.
him.
And in fact told them that he lives at this young man's house. I made a mistake. Jacoby Mills was in the car. It was Jacoby Mills, Adrian Davis, Trevon Glass, and Dontavius Withers. Okay? I can't keep the names straight.
Oh, because they
I'm lucky
all
if I
look
can
the
remember my
same to
own.
me.
That's why I haven't written it down.
Say it, say it, say it. They all look the same to me. Say it.
We
say
know that Moretti
it.
identified.
Remember about 3 weeks ago when we
all
all
8
loved
people
the
that left
when
the
we all
studio
loved the defense? We all
on
loved
October
this guy.
26th. We also
My, how
know
times have changed.
that Moretti knew where this young man lived, along with all the other 7 people that left the studio. We all know that, according to the state, Cortland Henry lied to the police.
Oh, do we?
And we also know, as the investigation progressed, that Cortland Henry had blood matching the victim on his clothes. And he also had GSR, or gunshot residue, on his clothes. If that were true, and you saw the pictures of the Jeep, all bloody, blood all over the place, and we learned that you could spray and determine if there was blood right here on the carpet, even though you don't see it, why in the heck don't you get a search warrant for the house? Why in the heck don't you? Don't tell us we didn't know where he lived. Don't tell us it was months later, because they go into the car 4 years later and do this. So why don't you do it? Because Detective Melly and the marijuana police department,
The marijuana police department. What?
lacks the experience and the training. We don't have to do a darn thing, folks. We don't have to do a thing. But let's go into the 11 witnesses now. The first one, and they mentioned it, George Bello.
Hello.
The manager, the head guy of the gun and tool mark unit of the entire Broward Sheriff's Office. And he tells you, after we get a great education of guns and projectiles and casings, we have to bring out the fact that can you tell or determine the distance between the shooter and the victim? Can you tell us that with all your experience? And what does he say? I can't do it unless I have the weapon, unless I have the ammunition, because ammunition, the weight of ammunition could change the distance. And you have to have the weapon in order to do that. He cannot even tell us if it was one gun, two guns, or more. He's honest. He tells you that without the weapon used, I cannot place the shooter to the victim, or victims in this case. Now, why is that important? Because a reasonable doubt can arise from a conflict in the testimony. If you believe George Bello, and I suggest you should, then he totally contradicts all the testimony of Sergeant Williams, who comes in here 4 and 5 years later and says, I can tell you where shooter one was, and I can tell you who the shooter is. Talk about a conflict in the testimony?
That's not
It's
really
one
a
or the other.
conflict in
It can't
testimony,
be
sorry.
both. And he tells you, in addition to that, that the environment has to be considered. Now, Williams tells you he goes out to the scene some 4 or 5 years later and has no idea, nor did he even check the terrain, the environment on that particular morning hour. So you got to believe one or the other. You can't believe both of them because they are in direct conflict with each other. But let's go further. The next witness that you should consider is FBI agent Brendan Collins. He is an expert in tracking phones. He is not only an expert in Broward County, but he's an expert, and his team have been specially trained to map phones, not only in this country, but anywhere in the world if he's called upon. They brought him in. And what does he tell you? This expert. I cannot determine precisely the location of a phone I cannot say 100% the phone is in, and you saw the band. It looks like a banana.
He said accurately, but not precise.
He says, I think it's somewhere within this area, but I can't be 100% sure. He's candid with you. And he further tells you that the call detail records are limited. And I can't tell you who had the phone at any particular time. And most importantly, he tells you in making the mapping of the phones, the FBI, the special agents, do not use two items that are on the bill. That is the environment section, and he does not map out based upon the longitude and latitude. He goes to the cell towers and where they're bouncing off. And it could vary depending upon the strongest signal or how busy that network is. Well, he contradicts Williams, the one who comes up and tells you the phone is at this location here, this location here, this location here, at these particular times. It's one or the other, folks. I suggest you there's another conflict in the testimony. The next witness I think you need to pay particular attention to and really get a flavor of what this case is all about is Felicia Holmes. Felicia Holmes tells you that the Miramar detectives, Moretti and his group, threatened her, bullied her daughter, told potential witnesses they were going to prison, told witnesses that they may never see their children again, told a witness that he was going to be deported even though he's been in this country since 5 years old. He was going to be deported to Haiti where they won't feed you. The place is, with all due respect, and excuse my language, but it was his language that he used.
Shithole.
Shit.
No, he said shithole, I believe.
This is the great detective. This is why this kid's sitting here. They have intimidated and threatened everybody. So I ask you, I beg you, to consider Felicia Holmes because that tells you what's going on. When Moretti got that surveillance tape and realized this young man, this little kid, excuse me for calling him a kid, he was 19 at the time, was a rap star making more money than he'll ever see in his entire career.
Oh, come on.
At 19. He got tunnel vision. And he wanted to nail this kid. And what better way to move up the ranks, get some publicity, is to arrest the star. If they arrest Howard or myself,
they arrested
who the hell is
Bortland.
Allison?
Bortland wasn't
Who
the
the hell
star.
is
They
Howard?
arrested Bortland.
That's the bottom line. So he just focused in, and everything was directed to get this kid. That's why he ignored everything. And that's why he intimidated and threatened anybody that said something different. So I ask you to pay attention to Felicia Holmes because you do get an idea of what this investigation is. The fourth witness was Kurt Rhodes, the DNA expert. Now, why is he important? Because while we were picking a jury in April and we were off in May, this prosecutor asked him to go back to the car and check some DNA Now, why would you do that? The case, according to Moretti, is closed as soon as this young man is arrested. Why do you go back 5 years and ask an expert, a DNA expert, to do some more testing?
No idea.
This kid walked into the Broward, voluntarily surrendered. And 5 years later, they have the audacity to say, do a little more testing. Why? Because now we're in trial. And they realize there's problems. Why else would you do it?
Because you just want to see if there's anything else, maybe?
3 years after this young man surrenders, they bring in Danny Polo. I call him the masked man. He came in here for a few hours, if you recall, got on this witness stand and wore a ski mask over his entire face.
A few hours
where
was
you
a
could
whole
only
day.
see his eyes. They came in here. He got involved in 2022 at the request, again, of the state, the prosecutor. What was the purpose of that? The great gang expert? They wanted to link him to some gang. You know, in the rap culture, whether you want to accept it or not, gangs are attracted to it.
Games are attractive to it.
If you want to be successful in rap music, you are going to pick up some of the nuances of various gangs. Snoop Dogg,
Games, not games.
to
Games.
this day,
Snoop Dogg.
it was.
Snoop Dogg's gang activity was in evidence?
All right, just proceed, counsel.
No, it wasn't.
Snoop Dogg, to this day,
Oh, seriously?
does hand signs of a gang. And he does that because he realizes it promotes his music.
Oh, are you sure about that?
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, why Snoop Dogg can't?
And because he wants to promote his music, make money, he's all of a sudden this big gang guy. And they wait till 2022 to bring him in. I thought the case was closed, according to Moretti. And they show you some text messages from, I think it was Gino Herc and Wando, who fought with Anthony Williams previously. Now, certainly, if the investigation is being fair and you want to find who was involved in this case, you would relay that information to the lead detective of people of interest or suspects. And what do we find out? Moretti has no idea who Gino is, no idea who Herc is, and doesn't know about Wando.
Wando.
This is a great investigation. But he also refers to some text messages where those individuals that are in fact associated with the gang text him and he's not responding. And to the point of not responding, they say they're going to put you on the plate. Now that's not for dinner. That's not for breakfast. We learned what that means. If you don't start responding,
They're gonna kill him.
they're going to have you killed.
So are you just telling people that he actually is in a gang?
Why wouldn't you investigate this? They want you to believe that there's no evidence of that. How do they know there's no evidence? If they don't investigate, they don't search They don't look. You got all these phones, yet Gino and her, you have their text messages. Go get their phones, track them, and
that's
see.
funny. That's actually funny.
We don't have to do a thing, folks. The presumption of innocence stays with us during the entire trial until and if they can prove beyond every reasonable doubt that this young man did anything wrong.
Rex Kwando.
Moretti didn't want to look at that. Why? Because God forbid they find some evidence. His arrest of a star is down the tubes. That's the bottom line.
It's weird he's saying they're not investigating gang members, saying they're going to kill him if he doesn't respond. That sort of implies he's in the gang.
I want you to pay particular attention to Dr. McDougall and Dr. Saunders. Because those two doctors, one being the chief medical examiner of Broward County, the other one, an associate medical examiner, I think now employed in West Palm Beach, say to you,
I want some Kaiser pineapple meaty jerky.
that the first shot to Williams and Thomas were fatal, deadly. Why is that important? Because according to Sergeant Williams, Thomas's injury to his hand came first. It was a defensive wound. We know that couldn't happen based upon the medical testimony. So you either have to disregard the medical examiner and accept what Williams' testimony is.
Why?
Or I suggest, now that you have four experts contradicting Williams' testimony. And that is Bello, Special Agent, FBI Agent Collins, and two medical examiners conflict with Williams' testimony, that you should take Williams' testimony and ignore it, toss it out. You can't have it both ways. It just doesn't work. And then we get to really their star witness, two star witnesses. Sergeant Williams. I think I've talked a bit about him. And I think the most amazing part of his testimony is that he does not get involved in this case until 3 years after the incident. Again, at the request of the state. Again, because they realize they have problems. And I applaud them to recognize they have problems. And miraculously, as I told you earlier, even though the Jeep was searched for hours and hours, processed for hours and hours, he finds additional evidence. 2 projectiles that everyone else missed, and a blood stain that is important. And that
court reporter looks like she's done.
When he did his analysis, 2 important things occurred. He didn't go in there blindly to do any analysis. He told you that the prosecutors in this case told them that the defendant in this case was this young man. And we need you to do a trajectory analysis to put him on the scene. Now, I suggest to you, you could have a Jolly Green Giant and a midget. And if you give them the dimensions, the height and his arm length, with this mathematical formula, you could say the Jolly Green Giant or the midget was a shooter in this case.
The
They would
what
either
are
be
you
closer
talking
to
about?
the car or further from the car.
They weren't further
Depending
from or
upon their
closer to
size.
the car. They were in
If
the
you wanna
fucking
do-
car.
An analysis. If you want
They
to do
were
an
in the fucking
investigation,
car,
if
bruh.
you want to figure out who the shooter is, why do you point to this kid and tell him, this is what we want?
No.
Why do you do
Anytime
that?
you shoot through a three-dimensional object, you have an entry point and
This
an
is
exit point. You run a rod
great
through it, and it
investigation.
points in the direction.
This is what they
where
wanted
came
you to
from.
do in order
They
to render
came
a
from
verdict
the-
that could take him.
They came from behind the driver's seat, where Melly is the last person seen in that seat.
Over proceed.
And tell him that he's going to live life in the state penitentiary without parole.
No way,
or
he's
being
riding
on
the
death
needle.
row.
Yeah.
This is the investigation they want you to rely upon and say it's proof beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? I guess so, according to them.
Not good.
And they call Danny Benitez.
Yeah,
Who the heck
prosecution
is he?
objected there for a minute.
He was on the stand for all of about 2 minutes. Danny Benitez gave Detective Moretti the surveillance tape from the Montessori school. You watched it. It showed, I suggest, nothing probative to implicate this young man.
True.
But we learned,
It showed
Not from
cars
him.
driving by. I didn't understand the whole Montessori video.
but from Moretti, that he doesn't go to the drugstore on Miramar Parkway to check their surveillance tape. He doesn't go to Applebee's to check their surveillance tape. He doesn't go to Polo Tropical or the gas station or the bank on Miramar Parkway to check their surveillance tapes. When the car's on 184th Avenue, he doesn't go to the fire station to check their tapes, surveillance tapes. Doesn't go back to the two elementary schools, Sunset Lakes and West Broward Elementary, to check their surveillance tape because he knows it all. He knows it. How do you know it if you don't check?
I gotta
How do you
say,
know
so.
something unless you investigate? We don't have to do a thing, folks. We don't have to do anything except show up. And begrudgingly, we did. Where the Montessori school was, on Pines, there was a tractor supply company and another school. Why don't you get that? And come in here and say, you know what, folks? We checked all of this. Instead, what they do is take a helicopter ride 4 or 5 years later.
Yeah, I didn't get the helicopter ride
And
evidence.
we have to sit here and watch as they fly the route.
Yeah. Well, you got paid to do it.
And we have to
didn't.
watch how they drive the route.
Yeah.
Not checking what the traffic conditions were that day, back 4 or 5 years ago. Not checking what the weather was 5 years ago in October 26th. What's the purpose of that?
Point. Good
Just
point. Good
add more of what I
Speaking of
suggest.
good points, we got
folks.
463 people here and 155.
Look at all this and say, heck,
Come on, people, get in there and hit that
100
like
exhibits.
button. It's
500
3:21 in the morning
photographs.
here, and I'm working hard for you people.
out of a cell
Give me a
phone.
like.
All
Give me a
these
like.
text messages. What does it mean? Hopefully, for the state, you'll say, hey, where there's smoke, there must be fire. And say, hey, too bad, young man, too bad. There's a lot of stuff sitting here. And hopefully you will not fall into that trap. And then we get to the lead detective. Well, before we get to the lead detective, I think I missed someone. Trevion Glass. the individual who got into the red Mitsubishi, the man who is convicted of 2 felonies. Now, why is that important? Because the judge read you an instruction on some of the factors to look at in determining whether or not to believe a witness or not. And he told you that one of the factors to look at is whether or not the witness has been convicted of a crime. Trevion Glass, the state calls, as their star witness, basically, to say Melly never got into that red Mitsubishi. And he told you one interesting thing. He said he's got a case pending right now, and he doesn't want to go back to jail. Now, who has the authority to put him in jail? We don't. There's only one person who can put him back in jail. And that's the state of Florida, whether it be through the state attorney's office or the police department.
So the state of Florida is a person.
And he miraculously is the only witness that says no one got into the red Mitsubishi from the recording studio. But he tells you, doesn't tell you how he gets into Melly's house, because he doesn't have a key. So, what's going on here? What's the story here? And then they call the star witness, the lead detective, Detective Moretti. We know he doesn't look at the surveillance tapes on the various Miramar
Legal
Parkway
persons,
and Pines and
not
that.
people.
Because he knows. He's worked the area. He knows that he got 9807, the phone that Melly has used, and you've seen various and a lot of photographs. I think it's Exhibit 115, am I correct? 100, excuse me, 100. And who did they get this phone from? Detective Moretti? Jameson Francois. And certainly you asked him, how long have you had this phone? And he says, I never asked him. How convenient. And he goes and says there was another phone in the vehicle, but it was broken. That's 115. 115. So I can't tell you whose phone that is. Now, we don't have a burden.
How dare you cast aspersions on Atticus Finch like that?
We asked him to take out the SIM card of this broken phone. And there was a reason for it, to tell you the quality of the investigation. He took out that SIM card, read the serial number from that SIM card, which he had never done until you saw him open this phone in the courtroom. And he agreed that you can take that serial number to T-Mobile, Sprint, and what have you, and determine whose phone is, who is the owner, subscriber, and get a warrant for that phone. You've got warrants on a lot of phones. Get a warrant on this phone if you want to see what it is. Moretti doesn't want to do that because he's afraid it'll ruin the investigation. That's why I put these two phones separate and apart from all this other stuff. Now, the state said to you, there was no reason, I think was the exact quote, for the Jeep to stop on the side of the road. I suggest to you that as we have done periodically through this case, the reason was
Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is argument. Proceed, counsel.
Boom.
the reason was because you needed a bathroom break.
Oh, that's
Just
their
like
deal.
You and I did. When I
The
raised
two
my hand
cars
first.
stopped on the
Stand
on
up.
the side of the street because he had to take a piss, and then he randomly decided to
And
get the
at
other
3
car.
o'clock in the morning,
Come
4
on.
o'clock in the morning, if he needed a bathroom break, in the dark highway, and you saw him carry it in his hand, he'd leave it on the seat of the car.
No, he put it in his
And
pocket.
we know that the car sped off because there was another car waiting, the red Mitsubishi.
What?
You want to know there's no reason? The poor kid had to urinate.
Where's the evidence of that?
And the
other guy
phone was
didn't
in the car.
testify to that.
They don't want you
I
to
don't
know
remember him
it.
testifying yet.
That's why we had to call Adrian Davis.
I don't
But
remember
let's stay
Adrian
on
Davis
Loretta
saying
for a
he took a
little while.
piss. If Adrian Davis said he
Because
took a
they
piss,
take
I'll take that back. But I don't
execute
recall.
a search warrant on his house, his apartment, and his storage unit. They find ammunition in there. They find in the storage unit, I think, 3 holsters and gun locks. We don't know what type of guns belong to those holsters. We don't know what type of guns were the gun locks to. All we know is there are 3 guns missing based upon the 3 holsters. And Moretti doesn't even ask where these weapons are. What are these weapons?
Wait, I'm still stuck on this whole idea.
Should it
Cars are
concern
going
you?
the same direction. He has to take a piss.
Should it
So
show
he
you a lack of evidence?
Gets out of the Jeep, leaves his phone on the
Yes.
seat. While he's pissing, the Jeep speeds off for no reason, and then he gets into the other car.
Ask yourself.
Because-
They keep telling you to use your common sense. Use your common sense, please. Ask yourself why a lead detective of a double homicide would not ask Jameson Francois, where the hell are the guns? Where the hell are the locks that belong to the guns? Where are they? I suggest to you when you use your common sense, you're going to say, he doesn't want to know. Because God forbid, those
And while he's
are one of
404ing,
those could be
it's
the
Nicholas
murder.
Darrow. Hi, sir.
And then
Hi, Jeff.
the investigation of this rap star is down the tubes.
He does the best he can with the evidence he does not have.
The prosecution was all fire and no smoke.
He reads
This
to
guy
you
is all
various
smoke and
messages
no fire.
from various people.
But like you
But
said,
he never
what you gonna
goes
do?
to talk to these people to see what they meant. You search Jameson Francois' car, that supposedly is involved in taking Melly in 4 months later. Well, if you go and search his car, Jameson Francois, let's go back again to his house. Get up here, State, and tell him why you didn't search the house. You learn about Frito Bang, supposedly takes him somewhere. Why in the heck don't you search his house? Even if it's 4 months later, 5 months later, 10 months later, and use that fancy spray. Not the one that causes you to get sick, but the new spray. And look for it. What kind of investigation is this when we're talking about?
Well, just because they didn't do that doesn't mean they don't have enough evidence in other locations and about other things and other pieces of evidence to prove he did it.
This is no game, folks. We're playing for all the marbles. That's why they said that Miramar Police Department lacks the training. They did absolutely nothing once they got that surveillance tape. Blinders on them. We're not going to look to the left. We're not going to look to the right.
We're not going to stand up. We're not going to sit down. We're not going to fight.
Everything to this young man. And I'm glad they admitted the suspects of 13. We know that Cortland Henry's involved. You heard about Crucial Almighty David Hedgepath, who wrote and texted, "We killed 2 of you." And someone said I should use the word ninjas instead of the word that he used. And in that message,
use bingers, not
he
ninjas,
had a target
dumbass.
over someone's face. Whose was it? Guess what? It's Melly. And he did it within hours. And what do they do? Nothing. Years later, they get his so-called timesheet where he was working. They don't bother to talk to any of his co-employees to verify this. In fact, if you look at the timesheets, it gives him time to, I think he's up in Verrill, Melbourne, to be exactly in Broward County, which is about 2 to 3 hours before the job. It's no alibi at all. But why don't you talk to these people? Why don't you investigate? How in the hell does he send out a text? "We killed 2 of you. We were aiming at the Jeep." Bentley, who had a problem with Melly, he does nothing. That's not a person of
doesn't
interest.
negate the fact that they had very
You know
compelling
that there
arguments
is a
and evidence that
incident
the
at
person
Walmart
that shot
where
the Jeep
he's
was stationary
robbed
and
of
the
a
Jeep was
chain, I think it
stationary.
is.
And as
Why don't you get
that
the
they
surveillance
found in
tape?
the back
Or at least try so you can say, I tried,
Yeah,
and it doesn't exist anymore.
continued.
Jameson Francois with the missing guns. He's the manager who had, I think, $16 million in his account. If anyone had a motive in this case, it would be Jameson Francois, possibly. I don't know.
What about your guy? He had 19 mil in the bank.
Prove a darn thing.
True.
Why don't you at least investigate? Why don't you do the work that is required before you ask 12 of you, to either put him on death row or life in prison. Jay Green, who had a beef with Melly. Why don't you check him out? Quando Wando, why don't you check him out?
Wando.
Gino, who said he's going to be on a plate. They're going to kill him. Moretti says, I don't even know who the heck Gino is because no one told me. Herc says you got to communicate with us or you're going to pay the consequences. He doesn't know who Herc is.
But we also know that Melly
Same thing.
He started contacting them after a couple of weeks later, but he did.
And then the state rests. They say, folks, we've presented you all the evidence. Well, that wasn't true. Because we had to call Adrian Davis. And you learned that Adrian Davis showed up in the state attorney's office and gave a sworn statement. They never told you this, we did. We don't have to do any of this. And Adrian Davis said, I told you, he got in the car. How do I know that? Because I was woken up when someone was crawling in the back seat. How do I know that? When we got to Melly's house, he's the one who had to open the door. Because only he and Cortland Henry had the key to his house. Why do we have to do that? Why did they conceal that from you? Why did they hide that from you? I can't answer those questions, folks, but I don't have to. Other than to say, reasonable doubt.
Yeah, well, we're at the point where I think he's been proven guilty.
You know, when we started this journey together, the state promised you
He only needs to
that
convince
they were
one
going
jury
to prove their case beyond
guilt,
the
and then
exclusion of every
5
reasonable doubt.
if he is.
They told you that they have accepted the responsibility, that they have the burden of proof. They told you that they would prove each element of this case. What they have proved to you is that Cortland Henry is involved in this case. Who else, if anyone else, you folks don't know from the evidence. They tell you and play you a video where Melly appears in Cocoa Beach
At
that
the
afternoon.
Coco Cabana.
Well, as AD told you, there was a contract, and people were going to lose a lot of money. And he happens to be at the tender age at that time of 19, a professional. And we all know, and unfortunately, probably a lot of us have had to do something while we are suffering an illness or a death in our family. What does that prove? Absolutely nothing, other than at the tender age of 19,
What's it good for? Absolutely.
this kid,
Say it again.
I say kid, I shouldn't say that. This man, young adult, is a professional. They say because you didn't show up at 1 or 2 jobs, then what the heck? They have no idea what the contract was. They have no idea how much money was involved. They have absolutely no idea. Why? Because there was no investigation. Play this. And they want you to believe that he's a cold-hearted murderer. When quite to the contrary, you saw the tapes. You saw that he's a nice young man.
He's a nice young man, Archie.
Face tattoos are.
Sorry.
Any lawyer can do is sit and see a misjustice, no matter what side of the fence you're on. Especially when you're talking about a 23, 24-year-old kid. Man, young adult. To me, he's a kid. Because I have children older than him.
Boom!
The worst thing you can do is sit and see a misjustice. And we have sat here for months, starting in April.
Which guy defends? He's 23, 24 now. He was like 19 when it happened.
The evidence. And I suggest to you right now, you should have more questions than when you were selected as jurors as to what really happened. And
his mom's she's a looker.
Recently said,
let me slide into your DMs there, Mom.
Our system of justice is broken.
Wood.
I don't believe that.
1 for wood, 2 for wood not. Come on,
But
Chad.
it got on TV and it was all over
1 for
national
smash,
news
2 for pass.
saying, I think our system of justice is broken. If you want to do justice in this case, and you want to follow His Honor's instructions of proving, making the state prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
3? I don't even know what 3. Okay, 69 is acceptable in this situation. 420.
You will go to the verdict form.
All right, sorry.
And check off. Count
She's not
1.
40. She's like 36 or 37
We, the
now.
jury, find as follows to the defendant.
She gave birth at
Not
14.
guilty.
14. Yeah.
We, the jury, on count 2, find the defendant not guilty. You may think he might be involved. That's not enough. If you waver and vacillate, that's what reasonable doubt is all about. You want to make sure the justice system stays intact. There's only one just verdict based upon the evidence they present. And that is
Guilty.
State. We just can't rely on
Shakes head.
beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt, because there is a lack of evidence, there is a conflict in the evidence, and the evidence itself, and the investigation itself stinks. I'd use another word, but I would probably get held in contempt. But I think you know what it is.
Argues.
So say we all.
What? The fuck was that? So say we all. What is this, Battlestar fucking Galactica?
They know to take a short recess. Case is not being turned over to the deliberations at this time. Remember the admonitions were not to discuss the case, don't form any opinion about the case, don't allow anyone to discuss the case in your presence.
That's what I said. It's Battlestar Galactica. Good on you for catching that one too, Conan. Two of us got Battlestar Galactica out of that. That's pretty good. Nicholas, welcome, and thoughts on the closing argument.
He's a good talker. He didn't make a lot of pauses. He always had the next line almost already done. He has prepared
Continues,
for
Council Man Lawler defense. Need a Russian break? Yes, can we arrange that for Mr.
Jersey
Bennett?
boys need a new Russian break.
Discuss, no? All right, we're in recess, thank you.
He said the Jersey boys need a new Russian break. Is that what that said?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Yeah, but I did listen to.
Continues, Council Man Lawler defense. Need a Russian break?
Jersey boys, Bennett new Russian break. Yes, we are. Sorry.
Yes, can we arrange that for Mr. Bennett?
Thank you. May I say?
Let me just fast forward here so we're not. So now we're caught.
Look
up.
at all this and say.
All right, go ahead. You were saying before you were so rudely interrupted by the Russians.
Well, the prosecution's closing, I heard 4 or 5 objections that was sustained, and only one for the defense, which means he was within protocol and they weren't. But does it help the defense? No, I don't think so. The projectile analysis, where did the killing come from? Then the defense more or less has to, of some sort, say, well, somebody else went into that back seat, and there's nothing of the sort. And
Well, their argument was it could have been a giant, it could have been a midget. We don't know.
Yeah, sure. It could have been Andre the Giant or the alleged shooter in the Murdoch case.
Peter
don't know.
Dinklage. Peter Dinklage did it.
No, I'm Swedish, Conan the Barbarian. I'm Swedish. Yeah, but are there whole?
now. See, I joked about Nicholas being Norwegian for quite some time till I realized it was actually pissing him off, so I stopped.
Oh, okay. I don't object because anybody who knows about Sweden and Norway just don't believe it. Are there holes in the prosecution's case? Yes. Are there enough to overcome their actual case? No, not in my opinion. It's quite solid.
Melly's hole's going to be bigger in prison.
Yeah.
Just say.
Well,
I kind of share your same thoughts. I mean, it's, well, let me read the super chats here, and then I'll give my thoughts. Let's see. Where'd my super chats go? Bass started us off darn near an hour ago with please mind control coughing guy and make him stop. Oh, if I could, I would. And Bass again dropping another $2 super chat. The state needed a leak detective, apparently. Yeah, that was weird, that whole...
Yeah.
I mean, because I do not remember anything about pissing during the actual testimony. If they said it, I completely missed it. All I know is they said they went in the same direction. For some reason, they stopped. They didn't know why he stopped because dude was asleep. There so many things. All right, dude was asleep, so he doesn't know why they stopped. He just knows that Melly got in the car for some reason. So they stopped, Melly got in the car, and they went different directions. But now they stopped because Melly needed to piss. He has his cell phone with him all the time. He sends 75,000 pages of text messages. But when he got out of the Jeep to piss, he put it on the cell phone. He put the cell phone on the seat. He was taking the piss, and for some reason, the Jeep just suddenly sped. That was the defense's words. The Jeep sped off, and then he got in sped off because there was another car there, and so he got in that car. Now, if he knew he left this is the thing. If he knew he left his phone on the seat of the Jeep, that counteracts what the defense was saying yesterday when they were saying he was looking for his phone. He didn't know where his phone was. He was trying to find his phone. If he left it on the seat of the Jeep, he would know that's where it was. He'd be like, hey, I had left my phone on the seat of the Jeep, and while I was pissing, the fuckers drove off.
Yeah, that sounds too unlikely when the next argument would have been stronger in he had to have been in the Mitsubishi, otherwise they wouldn't have gotten into the house because he was the only one in that car who had the keys.
Well, and they had the the prosecution's witness. They said, we went different directions. I don't know where Melly went. Our carload went home. The door was already open. It shows them going through the guard shack, Melly's guard shack. So, and the prosecution's witness slept in YNW Juvie's room, and after they woke up, Melly came back wearing different clothes than he left with. I find that more credible and more believable than I see. This is where why did they put the guy that was a fucking sleep on the stand as the defense witness? What about the other 3 guys that were awake apparently in the car? Where are they? I know the defense doesn't have to prove anything, but once you start to prove something, you kind of put yourself on the road to sort of making sense at least. There's 3 other people in the car. Why weren't they called as the defense witnesses? Why was the guy that was asleep in the back seat, why was he the one that was called as the witness? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because they couldn't help the defense?
Well, that could be it.
Yeah. Wildly speculating over here.
Yeah. I guess they were all sleeping. Driverless cars are pretty. It's a Mitsubishi. It ain't a driverless car. It's a car that barely drives.
And seriously, a red Mitsubishi. Seriously, why don't you just come out of the closet directly?
It's not out of the realm of possibility that what the defense is saying is true, but I don't think it's reasonable.
No. The questions, I usually say this on my streams. I start with a lot of questions, and it all depends on what questions remain. And if most of them are reasonable, then I have to go with not guilty.
Yeah.
If all of them are unreasonable, I have to go with guilty. And now I have seen roughly maybe 1/3 of this case, but I will still go with the only questions I have left are too speculative.
Yeah.
And I have to go with guilty.
Well, I liked what the judge said in instructions. Is it something that makes you go, wait a minute? If it shakes you and makes you if it makes you wonder, wow, did you do it or not? Then it's reasonable doubt. I heard this. I heard the defense's explanation went, bullshit. And I got a couple other super chats here before the jury sits down. Adam Wathen says, do you think the jury will find him guilty? Yes. And that's what I think. What do you think? Do you think yes or no?
They should be.
Just answer the question, yes or no. That's why I was trying to be the
I refuse to. You can't stop me. Yes, yeah, you can. It's your stream.
Okay. And do you think he did? Do you think he did it? Yes, I think they'll find him guilty. Yes, I think he did it. I've not watched much of this trial.
The defense only has to have one of them doubt, but I don't think so.
And the amateur iconoclast says, to be fair, he did the best with what he had. I don't think, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client has $19 million. Gang connections in your names and addresses will be made public will fly. See, that's the thing. I think he did the best with what he had. Hang on here just a second.
Please give counsel the same courtesy and attention previously.
All right, we're going to do the rebuttal here now.
So
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think he did.
You've heard an hour and
Best he
10
could with what he had, but I don't think it was enough.
Speculation.
Duncan, Idaho said he's a good boy.
Heard an
He
hour
didn't do
and 10
nothing.
minutes
Look at this
of
young
asking
kid, man, boy's
the state
face.
to do something. I'm not allowed.
And
I'm not allowed to
Beelzebub
testify.
has a
I'm
devil
not a
set
witness.
aside for you.
So why the
Beelzebub
personal
has a devil set aside for you.
Why getting upset when there's a mistake that was caught? Just like defense counsel made a mistake and Ms. Liberty quickly brought it to his attention that he said the wrong person on the red Mitsubishi. There's a reason why there are multiple layers in place, why there are piece after piece of evidence that shows this defendant did that. Let me start in the back seat of that Jeep.
That's where she started, in the back seat.
How do we know The defendant was the one there
Who was conceded
with that
as well.
Apple iPhone, not that LG.
Not that
Here's
shitty
a pretty
LG.
good
It was an
clue.
iPhone.
That's an Apple phone charger going to the back seat right there, not an LG. And also, ladies and gentlemen, you know that LG phone wasn't working on October 26th of 2018. Multiple witnesses testified that it was an inoperable cell phone. So let's be very clear on that. Let's talk about Adrian Davis, AD.
Yeah.
Adrian Davis seems to be
Defense
a
witness.
part of this puzzle. Kind of looks like the other puzzle pieces, kind of looks like it might fit.
Oh, the puzzle
But
piece.
then when you
Yes.
put all the puzzle pieces together and you start looking and comparing
Yes.
it, you go, well, none of the other ones are bright red like that. It kind of sticks out like a red herring.
Or a red
Because
puzzle.
that's what Adrian Davis is. So why would counsel ask me why I wouldn't call him? That assumes the witness is credible.
David Nelson
That
going
assumes the
old
witness
school.
is telling the truth.
And before
That
LG was
assumes
Lucky
that
Gold
Adrian
Star.
Davis's testimony is
now it's
consistent with
LG.
every other
Before
sworn
that, it was just
statement,
Gold Star.
deposition, and trial
Gold Star,
testimony.
Lucky
in this
Gold
case.
Star, then LG.
If the witness is not credible and doesn't agree with
You
any
must
other
be
piece of
credible.
evidence in the case, I'm not going to call him.
Wow.
So
Oh, I thought you did nothing further.
counsel made a very, very big deal about the key,
I
right?
swear to God, she said nothing further.
And why changing card is going to the same place? Well, here's a message from September of 2018 between Mr. Demons and Anthony Williams. Is the back door unlocked? Yeah,
There was no Lucky.
it gets better. What about this one, where Mr. Demons is asking, oh, does Bort have the garage button? More than one way to get into a house. And even better, from Anthony Williams, October 3rd, I would have told AD to leave his key.
Yeah.
This is all in the messages that are in evidence.
They
So
already
that
knew
is on page
all
248 of the conversations between Mr. Williams and Mr. Demas. October 3rd, 2018. Tell AD to give you the key.
That's not what it says. It says tell AD.
Adrian Davis had a key. There's no question based on these messages. If you're going to make the argument, know the evidence. Because that is clearly contrary to all of the evidence.
Ooh, that is kind of a big one.
That's that community phone.
That is kind of a
everybody used
big
on
problem
that.
right there.
I agree that the 9807 phone is accurate because it doesn't have any emotions, feelings, can't be paid off. It can't be in any way, shape, or form changed. It is what it is. So to make sure that we're clear on all
That's
the
actually a big.
aspects of the jury instructions, and Ms. Smith, I'm going to kind of turn that on. Does the witness's testimony agree with the other testimony or evidence in the case? Counsel wants you to look at each piece of evidence individually. The problem is, it's not an individual picture. It's the totality of the circumstances. Because if you look at each individual piece of evidence, what are the odds? Ask that question. What are the odds that Mr. Demons got into that back seat? That all the fatal shots came from that back seat? That they then go to his friend's house, Frito Bang? You saw the picture, it states 62, they're hanging out. What are the odds that each and every single piece of evidence is stacked up trying to implicate him? And let's be very clear, there are attacks on Detective Moretti on that. Ask saying he's trying to better himself or further himself. Detective Moretti testified he's a detective in the Homicide Bureau today, just as he was 5 years ago when this case occurred. to say that a man who spent 20 years in armed services in protection and furtherance of his country cares about publicity? There was no impeachment. There was no articles or news things on that. No, Detective Moretti is here fighting on behalf of Christopher Thomas and Anthony Williams, the two young men, kids, that were murdered. And let's be clear, calling someone a kid, anything like that, is a play on your sympathy. And ladies and gentlemen, you agreed when we sat down for jury selection that sympathy would not come into play. That you would look and base this on the facts and the evidence. And ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, you have that. Let's talk about some of the suspects quickly. First of all, they bring up that Danny Polo mentions that and taught you that what does on a plate mean. So let's be clear, Danny Polo is good to tell you and teach you that term, but when he says fire, you're not supposed to believe him. Which is it? You either believe or disbelieve. Danny Polo is a detective with tons of experience in this particular area. He talked about listening to wiretaps.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Gangsta.
They were talking about them. It's very clear from the context. But so then let's look at that on the plate comment. When did that happen in those messages? February 6th of 2019.
We'll talk about this in a minute.
So not anywhere
I
near
promise.
the date of incident. Again, another red herring to try and say, oh, this doesn't fit. And ladies and gentlemen, having a motive does not equal guilt. Having a motive does not equal guilt. One singular online statement is not the same as having the reasons and the opportunity and the means to commit this crime. And the only person who had the opportunity, the reason, and the means.
That's our poll for the day on Hung Hero. Check it out.
So counsel kept saying the presumption of innocence. That's gone. Once the evidence is there as to each element of the offense, there is no longer a presumption of innocence. Again, in jury selection, we talked about that.
Digger's birthday stream
It's
starting
illegal to have a
Saturday
certain
night
colored
US
pen
time.
on a
Check
certain
it
day
out.
in this courtroom. Silly example, but a good point. It doesn't matter what color my shoes were or what jacket I had on. It's the elements of the crime and only as to the elements that the state has to prove. And it's only beyond a reasonable doubt. As we discussed, beyond a reasonable doubt is not all possible doubt. We talked about this. We discussed this at length. That as a juror, if you had 100% positivity as to what happened, you'd be up there on the witness stand. There will always be questions. That's why it's what the puzzle shows. If you believe, and I submit that you should, the evidence from the testimony and the witnesses in this case, there is no question as to what that picture shows. That this defendant committed 2 counts of first-degree murder. So one of the things I want to make sure that you understand, ladies and gentlemen, is you will have the opportunity, because this has been many, many days. If you want to hear testimony read back to you, you're allowed. You don't get copies of the transcripts, but you can request any witness's testimony to be read back to you. Look at Adrian Davis's. Not once did he mention anything about a pee break.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
Never came up.
That's what I thought.
If there was a reason, he could have testified to it.
That's what I thought.
Where? When? No details. I can't even call him the one fact witness because what he's saying is not a fact. Because there is complete dispute as to what he's saying. So counsel says that, oh, Detective, now Sergeant Chris Williams, was brought in just to pin it on this guy. No, ladies and gentlemen. Look at your notes. Think back to his testimony. What did Sergeant Williams say? Prove or disprove it was a drive-by. Not who was holding the gun outside the car, how far away. There was no testimony as to that. The testimony was what happened inside the car, what happened outside the car.
Right. We've proven that what happened outside of the car had nothing to do with the murders.
And if there's no dispute that a murder happened, 2 murders,
Ed Gain,
why are the cross-examination on meaningless?
he had a bullet list, pun intended. I don't know which is funnier, the comment or the name.
Ask that. So, again, we've talked about the phones, and even the defense counsel says the phones are reliable. They're that digital leash that we talked about, that you go back for when you forget it. And there's no evidence whatsoever that supports this, oh, the phone was left in the car theory. There's none.
The jury
Phones
can
don't
rely
send
on their
messages
notes.
and walk 1,300 steps by themselves. There's no evidence whatsoever that anybody else got in that Jeep.
And that is also true.
What the evidence does show, the defendant was consistently in that Jeep, and that Jeep never stopped during that whole course of travel until it got to the edge of the Everglades. The edge of the Everglades, where there's no witnesses, where there's no cameras, where they can stage a crime scene to try and get away with murder. So, counsel talks about the verdict form. So you're very there are options on the verdict form.
And their notes. If they have a question, they can ask for the
Including a lesser included offense.
testimony to be read.
What does a lesser included offense mean? A lesser included offense is the smaller felonies that make up murder in the first degree. So in this case, the lesser included offense would be manslaughter. That, as you learn from reading the instructions, is without the premeditation. That is negligently playing with a firearm and shooting someone in the back of the head. That's not what you have in this case, ladies and gentlemen. You have a planned execution of Anthony Williams, and then the same as to Christopher Thomas. Reasonable doubt is just that. It has to be reasonable. It's not beyond all possible doubt.
It can't be like Swedish rock sensation Roxette
It's
saying,
one that
going for a
has
joyride.
You have a gut feeling that the defendant is guilty. You are not there on a search for doubt. That's not your job. You are to evaluate the evidence and determine whether or not the defendant is guilty in accord with the law.
Yeah. I heard you
So-
played Roxette on your barbecue.
To go to that,
Yes, you heard Roxette on
stealing
the
this
barbecue.
from
I was
Mr.
gonna ask you
Howard's
that.
opening statement. Jury service is not a group project. It is 12 individual opinions. So if you have been convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder, you don't have to acquiesce to a lesser. If one person is not following the law and is not upholding their jury service, one person saying not guilty, that doesn't mean that's a verdict of not guilty. Mr. Adelstein answered that question for one of y'all during jury selection when he was asking questions. If you have an abiding conviction of guilt, the only appropriate verdict in this case is guilty of first-degree murder on 2 times.
Guilty 2 times. Another
Discussing
one.
as to reasonable doubt. We talked about it, about walking to work. Is it possible to walk here from Miramar if you live out there? Possible, but not reasonable. The simplest explanation.
That's how I feel. Right.
That makes the most sense, that takes the fewest leaps, is that this defendant killed these two individuals. The why? Don't have to prove that, but I've given you options, and the evidence has given you options. So, with regards to Mr. Glass, counsel talked about him. If Mr. Demons is at the house that morning,
Objection to the name.
Demons,
Right.
She keeps saying demons.
at the house
That's
that
funny.
morning, and rode back with Travion Glass in that red Mitsubishi, why?
Sorry, Mr. Melly. This is as is Swedish rock sensation
It's
Europe
Travion.
saying the final.
Here's what I'm doing. Why is he saying in these messages, how would they ever think I did something like that? Why? If he was there and saw him there. So defense counsel talked about Brendan Collins. But I want to make sure it's clear for ladies and gentlemen that there's two different types of information. Brendan Collins testified that those other location points can be corroborated with other information. Surveillance video, things like that. So he's saying he's not using them because he's just doing the timing of things. Not that they aren't reliable, not that they aren't accurate, just that that's not what he uses. That was his testimony. In addition, counsel was trying to say that no, things can be changed because of the signal strength and it's things in between the phone and the tower. No, that is on the phone side, not the network side. This is looking at what the network sees when Brendan Collins is testifying. So ladies and gentlemen, you can go and you can compare the various evidence and the exhibits yourself. These will all be sent back with you as you deliberate.
So you have to know yourself.
And you can
know
look,
Melly.
for example,
Sort of like
at the
Swedish
past
pop
report,
sensation ABBA saying, knowing
which
me,
is in
knowing
evidence
you.
as state 65, right? This is
Don't
the
quote
772-713-9807 Demons phone.
On copyright.
Well then, ladies and gentlemen, you can also look at what's been admitted
Oh,
into evidence.
we've got the
as
titty.
states
We got the
104.
titty graph here.
The drop pin. And don't take my word or the PowerPoint that I created to say that this works. Do it yourself. Line up the roads and see how everything overlays.
Green screens are dangerous if you show the actual green screen. Anybody
Defense
can put
counsel says
anything on it.
George Bello, his testimony is he can't give you an exact range or distance from them. And that is correct. He said that for a specific gun. However, it's different than what Sergeant Christopher Williams is doing. Because remember, George Bello is doing the internal ballistics of the gun, not the external, not the trajectories and the flight paths. That's not his area. That is separate and apart. Chris Williams is doing that aspect with the trajectories. In terms of all of the information from George Bello, there's still casings that match and projectiles that match.
Guilty 2 times.
Counsel then argued that Kurt Rhodes goes back to the car to get DNA.
Gone away.
No. As you heard, ladies and gentlemen, that DNA was collected October 26th of 2018. For the Montessori school, in the route and flying back, counsel says, oh, well, we didn't check traffic and weather. Well, then in the next breath, the argument was, well, but it's 3 a.m. in the morning, there's nobody out. Just get out on the side of the road and beat. But there's no evidence to that. Look at Adrian Davis's statements. Look at his testimony. He never argued that. So for the search warrant on Jameson Francois, the 3 guns that are missing, the ones that all have the Glock backstrap, the Glock, all of them, those aren't involved. And to say that the defense argument that the state or the defense or the detective does not want to find those guns is contrary to all the testimony from Detective Wright. If he didn't want to find the guns, why is he doing search warrants at these locations? If he didn't want to find the murder weapon, why are they diving the C9 canal? Why are they diving the lake behind Frito Bank's house? Of course they're looking for them. When you're looking at and saying, oh, he's a professional. Ladies and gentlemen, the message was very clear where he missed a show to have his hair braided. He told his mom, it's okay. Stop being all upset. To go through a trauma like that, to shoot a video on someone's cell phone, and watch the cell phone video. I'm not talking about the Facebook Live one. I'm talking about the professional. They're using a cell phone to shoot a music video.
I wonder if her son goes away for the rest of his life. If Mrs. Melly, if Melly's mother will be singing those famous lines from Swedish pop sensation Ace of Base. All that she wants is another baby.
Every lead was followed. Every warrant was written and then sent.
Just wondering, thoughts.
Have he signed over the rights to his mom yet?
Every piece of evidence points to is this defendant.
You're Googling Swedish bands and songs.
Ladies and gentlemen, the state has proven.
No, I'm running out. I should because I'm running out. I've only got one more.
Jamel Demons has committed 2 counts of first-degree murder.
You have a lot of metal bands, but I doubt that kill all and burn churches applies here.
Huh. All right. I thought you did a good job countering.
Thank you.
And besides the point,
well, now's my time to use my last one.
We're back on
As Swedish metal sensation Ammon Amarth said, That's my last one. I don't know any other Swedish bands.
In just a few moments.
Fun fact, the 3
The first thing you should do is choose a foreperson who will preside over your deliberations. The foreperson should see to it that your discussions are carried on in an organized way and that everyone has a fair chance to be heard. It is also the foreperson's job to sign and date the verdict form when all of you have agreed on a verdict and to bring the verdict form back to the courtroom when you return. During deliberations, jurors must communicate about the case only with one another and only when all jurors are present in the jury room. If a juror goes to the restroom, the deliberation should stop until the juror returns. You are not to communicate with any person outside the jury about this case. Until you have reached a verdict, you must not talk about this case in person or through the telephone, writing, or electronic communication such as a blog, Twitter, email, text message, or any other means. Do not contact anyone to assist you during deliberations. These communication rules apply until I discharge you at the end of the case. If you become aware of any violation of these instructions or of any other instruction I have given in this case, you must tell me by giving a note to our court deputy. Many of you have cell phones, tablets, laptops, or other electronic devices here in the courtroom. The rules do not allow you to bring your phones or any of those types of electronic devices into the jury room. Kindly leave those devices on your seats where they will be guarded by the court deputy while you deliberate. If you need to communicate with me, send a note to the court deputy. If you have voted, do not disclose the actual vote in the note. If you have a question, I will talk with the attorneys before I answer, so it may take some time. You may continue your deliberations while you wait for my answer. I will answer any question, if I can, in writing or orally here in open court. During the trial, items were received in evidence as exhibits. You may examine whatever exhibits you think will help you in your deliberations. These exhibits will be sent into the jury room with you when you begin to deliberate. In closing, let me remind you that it is important that you follow the law spelled out in these instructions in deciding your verdict. There are no other laws that apply to this case. Even if you do not like the laws that must be applied, you must use them. For more than 2 centuries, we have lived by the Constitution and the law. No juror has the right to violate the rules they don't share. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send into the jury room with you with the verdict forms. There's also going to be a computer which has been you are able to use to see any of the electronic items of evidence that are in evidence. So you'll have that in the jury room with you with the evidence so you can view it during your deliberations. Also, there may be items of evidence that do not go back if they have a hazardous material on. They're identified as hazardous.
Well, the gun can't go back because we don't know where that is.
If you want to see any of those items of evidence, they'll be here in the courtroom. We got the gloves here in the courtroom, and they'll be shown to you. Just let us know
courtroom, Judge. The courtroom.
That you want to view an item of evidence that's not back in the jury room. We'll make arrangements to have it shown to you. All right. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Beverly Mayweather and Mr. Patel if you just remain in the courtroom. The other jurors are free to go back to the jury room now to commence deliberations.
If they vote guilty and it is 8-4
jury instructions with you, and I'm going to verify with the attorneys that all the evidence is here, and that will be following the bailiff back in the jury room in a few minutes. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You're tired. Commence your deliberations. Ms. Mayweather, Mr. Patel, just remain here, please.
Oof. Well,
all right.
That's it. He's going to say thank you to the alternates and send them on their way. And that's kind of it.
They are sequestered, right? They can't leave.
Yep. They are in lockdown until they come back with a verdict.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen today, it's guaranteed to happen tomorrow because they ain't sticking around for the weekend. I guarantee you that.
Hell no. Oh hell no. And it's what is it?
You're not excused.
30 p.m.
Nope. You don't, unfortunately, as an alternate at this time, you're not going to go back in to deliberate. We may or may not need you to come back.
Oh, he's not excusing the alternates. Good for him.
So you're not being excused. The admonition I gave you previously remains in
They just don't have to be in.
We're not to discuss the case.
They just don't have to be sequestered.
Don't allow anyone
They're
to
just
discuss
still on
the
jury
case.
duty.
If a fight breaks out in the jury room, they might be no.
You have to look at those things. Just turn it off. All right. We very much appreciate the fact that you're here and willing to serve. But at this juncture, you're not excused. We'll hold your notepads here, and we're going to contact you if need be. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right.
Please stand.
You escort them out. Thank you. Just give your notepads to the bailiff, please, and she can secure those. Thank you. All right, let the record reflect the 2 alternates who now also have been excused from the courtroom. Counsel remain along with the defendant. Anything to discuss, counsel?
No, sir.
Mr. Devens? Need the restroom? You're more than welcome to use the restroom. We'll
Piss on the
arrange for
side of
that.
the courtroom like you do on the
Like
side of the
how
road, Melly.
presentation your attorney's made? Satisfied? All right. Thank you.
We're not going to
You're not going to be here, so you won't come. Well, he'll be right downstairs. All right, so right now we're going to be in recess. Can you stick around? Yes. Talk off the record.
Okay. You want to stay. If you bring it back.
Well, let him go for a restroom break now.
Yeah, we can all see that the local fireplace guy won the bid for the courtroom interior. Yeah, hi.
Well,
All right.
let's see how we're doing here on the poll. Now we are officially on verdict watch.
Yeah.
The like and subscribe poll. Now, again, people, you freeloading, cheating mother effers watching this channel. The idea is you're supposed to hit the like button before you take the poll. We've got 547 votes, but only 300 of you have actually hit the like button. Like 150 of you are no down dirty sneak thieves. You're scallywags. You're other oldie timey bad words. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button. And while you're at it, give old Nicholas Starr over here. Give him a subscribe to. He deserves it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Otherwise, I'll go by you and say hi.
There you go. What do we? Let me see here. We'll keep the court stream up so we can check that out for the next little while. I mean, they're not going to. Let's see. Well, the like and subscribe poll is how long do you think it's going to take them to render a verdict? Less than 26% of you said less than 2 hours. 34% of you said 2 to 4 hours. 18% said 4 to 6 hours, and 22% said more than 6 hours. I'm in the 2 to 4 hour category.
Yeah.
Is that where you're sitting?
Yeah. Yeah. Deliberating, ask for supper. Or they may just, okay, where do I fill out the form? And then we can ask for dinner before we get home. Yeah.
I don't think it's coming back in less than 2 hours.
No, the jury forms takes a while. And they have to have that initial vote. And if there's anyone in there, I'm not sure. Then they might
at least pretend
15...
to deliberate.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Yeah. Fire and ice. Where'd you go? Does Jeff not have to work today? Jeff has to work in about 5 hours from now.
Hey, that leaves 3 hours of stream, 1 hour of sleep, and then go to work.
Oh, well, if you have a few more minutes of stream and start another one if they come back.
Yeah. Usually they have a verdict. Okay, let's do it at the top of the hour. So you have.
Yeah, I got 30 minutes sleep. I'm good.
Yeah.
So that's your take. You're kind of the same situation as me. I'm guessing 2 to 4 hours, probably closer to the 4 hour side.
Yeah. Everybody wants dinner because they want the last thing from the state at least get us dinner.
And if they put them up in like a 5-star hotel or something, then they might just want like a relaxing night at the hotel. But
yeah,
I guarantee they're not going into the weekend.
No, this is the Holiday Inn around the corner. I don't know what's a.
Yeah. There's no personal time off today. That doesn't exist here in Korea. Personal time off equates to permanent time off. You want to take a rest today, do you? How about a lifetime rest?
Yeah, and
I got
over
things
here.
I actually have a very,
Sweden,
very important thing to do this morning that needs to be done before noon. So yeah, no day off for me.
And over here in Sweden, we have we don't have the PTO where you have to request or anything like that because we live in a socialist country, and every month I get a few hours appointed to me that I can take out.
That you have to work. Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
Tuesday, sorry.
Tuesday I did a work from home and I was done in about half an hour, and that half an hour was answering mail, and I have to time the request the mails to every 2 hours. Yeah, you're welcome. But yesterday I got a new caseload, so yeah, next week is probably 120 hour week of work. So yay me. Once that's why I can use other days to try to relax. But next week, I'm in 4 minutes I can say how how forked I am in time.
Yeah, well, just got to get through tomorrow. It's Friday tomorrow, but like I said, tomorrow morning I do have, before lunch, it needs to be finalized by lunch. I've got to wrap up a contract that has $2.3 million writing on it. So I've got no choice. Yeah. I've got, I mean, not my my $2.3 million, our client's $2.3 million.
Yeah, that's kind of important. And the only thing, I have caseload of people who may or may not have done something wrong at work that may or may not cost their work. So I have to defend them and find the reasons for it. And that might take a while.
Well, we do have 2 super chats here to get through.
Hey, nice.
Unhung Hero bets on length of deliberation. We just kind of went through that. Nicholas and I both think 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be wrapped up today, which I hope, because tomorrow is part 2 of the run up to the Taylor Business trial, which you're not going to want to miss. We're going to go over motions, the motion to suppress all of the evidence that was found executing the search warrant, and the motion to dismiss the, pretend we're 2 minutes from now, the sexual assault charges, because the defense argued that under Wisconsin law, well, for those of you that don't know, Taylor Business allegedly, well, not even allegedly, they're not even denying it, murdered her boyfriend, killed her boyfriend. The question is whether it was murder or not. Killed her boyfriend, she pleasured herself with his corpse for about 3 hours, performing oral on his corpse and using a dildo up the old keister, et cetera, chopping him up, and they charged him with sexual assault. The argument from the defense is it cannot possibly be sexual assault because under Wisconsin law, sexual assault can only happen to a person, and because he was dead, he didn't meet the legal definition of person. So therefore, it could not be sexual assault. He tried. The judge said, "Well, sorry, we're dismissing that." But we're going to go over those motions, and I do like the logic. The reasoning was actually very, very good. I thought he had a good chance, but the judge smacked it down. So now he's going to actually have to make those arguments in court, which is going to be fun.
Yeah. No, Justin Smith, he didn't get pegged to death because
he got pegged after death.
Yeah. And if you ever wondered the absolute darkness of lawyer humor, watch this trial with Jeff, because we see crap. We see pure evil sometimes.
So did she. So did she, because like after death, usually the sphincter relaxes. She probably saw some crap too.
Yeah.
I Everness at 5:20 a.m. here in Sydney, and the last thing that's in my head before going to bed is going to be Ace of Base. Thanks, Jeff. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's all you could want. Sorry.
Yeah. Still the best-selling debut album of all time. 24 million sold albums of.
Wow.
And yeah. So they did good until they discovered, 3 of them discovered that the 4th was an active National Socialist. And then they kind of, let's not do this anymore.
Oh,
We
that's what
don't
happened.
want to make that guy rich, richer.
Oh wow. Oh, also the Cotton Eye Joe guys, rednecks. Yeah,
Rednecks.
suddenly
Yeah,
they just popped into my head.
Yeah, they're also Swedish.
My wife thought I wanted that CD for a birthday present one year. She was sadly mistaken. Yes,
and if anyone wants to cover that copyright / whatever, that's a cluster F in its own.
Oh, did they get crushed for doing that? They didn't have permission to do
it? No. But the producer dismantled the band, formed a new band with the exact same name, but one of the musicians was involved in it, so they couldn't really dismantle the band and stop paying royalties, which they did.
It's sort of like the argument over who is the real Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Okay. Hempland, Texas. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
All right. Is yesterday's stream still monetized? Okay, yesterday's Taylor Should Business stream. That's when we got in the. If you want the real gory details of what happened, go watch yesterday's stream. Or I also broke it up into a shorter video. Go watch that. You can go to my channel. It's the last video I uploaded. It's all the gory details of the criminal complaint, where where we really get into exactly everything she was accused of doing. Every other time we've ever talked about Taylor Should Business, so YouTube has in the monetization, they give you a little green $ if everything's cool. If they limit your ads because you're pushing the edge and they think advertisers won't really be excited about it, then it goes yellow. When they're just like, all right, nobody wants anything to do with your stream, it goes red for monetization. Then your stream is demonetized. Every time we've talked about Taylor Should Business, it's been demonetized very, very quickly. Yesterday it was yellow. And then about 10 minutes after the stream finished, it went full green. They had no problem with it which I was actually a little more like racy and pushing the envelope than I was when we first did it. So yeah, apparently they've changed their mind about Should Business, because we are fully monetized for yesterday's stream. Jesus, so that was a surprise.
I haven't had a stream in about a month that didn't went yellow the first 10 minutes. Then again, I'm doing Serial Killer Sunday and Jodi Aries, so might not be that strange, but yeah, they really have,
we're doing pretty good.
I object to it or whatever it's called, and 5, 6, 7 days later, okay, we changed our mind, it's green. And then, well, it doesn't help me 5 or 6 days later when 98% of the total viewers has already seen it.
And now you know why it goes yellow.
Yeah.
So they don't have to pay you ad money for the first week. And then you get like 2 cents for 2 cents a month after that.
Yeah. And even worse, I made an 8-minute video the other day. And as usual, I put in like 2 ads in it. One of my mods checked the video. She got 8 ads in an 8-minute video. So, so somehow YouTube says, no, it needs more ads. And that explains why I have almost no viewers on that, because who the F wants to watch an 8-minute video who is constantly interrupted?
Well, yeah, you're right.
But one thing you gotta see is the stream I did earlier today, which have more or less no views because, well, Baker was on and Jeff went on. The last 15 minutes of my last stream is a defense attorney obliterating an expert. I just sat there and holy crap. This is I have to clip that and make it to a separate video because it's beautiful the way he just obliterates everything about that expert.
Well, I don't think the prosecutor in this case, in the Melly case, obliterated anybody.
No.
Well, let's we've got our time poll up. Let's do one final poll. This is the ultimate ultimate guilt innocence poll we'll put up here. Let's do that right now. And by the way, everybody, hit that like and subscribe button. There's still a bunch of you that haven't done that. So I would appreciate you hitting the like and subscribe button and then taking the like and subscribe poll. Like, comma, subscribe.
Yeah, and if you're for some odd reason or the replay crew, like it and leave a comment.
Yeah. And you can also send a super thanks.
Yeah.
If you really, if you feel sad that you can't throw money at me on a live stream, you can throw it at me in the comments. Hit the super thanks button. All right. Guilty, death. Guilty, death. Guilty, guilty. Life in prison. And our final option, not guilty. Go with God.
Yeah, for completely selfish reasons. I'm nothing to do with the trial. But if there's he's guilty, let's say speculatively guilty, then it's the penalty phase, and it's an 8-4 vote. This will go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, because this is something that I was going to mention earlier because there seemed to be some confusion about it in chat. Florida's new law, and he is either the first person to worry about this or one of the very first people to worry about it. After the Parkland shooter verdict came back with a 9-12 in favor of the death penalty, with 3 people voting life imprisonment and no death penalty, the governor decided, well, let's just change the law so 8 people are required. Only 8 people are required to send someone to death. So what he's looking at is death by 3/4 majority.
And this is a bit weird for me.
No, it's not even. It's 2/3 majority. Geez,
yeah,
it's 2/3 majority.
Yeah, and this is really weird for me from a European point of view, because when a new law takes precedent, you can only do this with crimes that occurred after the new law is in place. But here it is when the trial starts, if I'm correct.
Well, that's the interesting thing. If you're charged with a crime, of course, it has to be a crime at the time you committed it. And if that was the problem with the Alec Baldwin case. They charged him with the with this firearms enhancement. It was the negligent homicide plus this firearms enhancement. But the firearms enhancement wasn't a law at the time the shooting occurred. If they, so. But it became a law later, but it still wasn't, so they couldn't charge him with it because it wasn't a crime at that point in time. What this is a sentencing thing. It's not the crime thing. Oh, that's the distinction. The sentence, if he would have been sentenced before the law changed, then it would have been, they couldn't have been retroactively applied, but he hadn't. He still isn't, and he still might not be. But if he is convicted, the sentencing happens after the law came into effect. So,
and Gosney had a good point about this. If the vote on death penalty, say it's 7-5, then there should have been enough enough to not find him not guilty.
Omni-Stash Gaming just decides to be a troll here for no apparent reason. Suddenly, you got bit by the troll bug, which clearly not even true. It's so much so that I can't even let it go as a joke. That would be the exact opposite of the case.
Yeah.
Stephen Walk wouldn't need 8-4, 11-1 would be enough to go SCOTUS.
Alabama has 10-2, so it's not automatically. I think you need to get to 9-5 again to have it.
I think there's Alabama. I think there's another state. I think there's 2. I may be wrong, but the idea to give the buffer, the 10-2 buffer, is because there can always be the one guy who says during jury selection, I have no problem imposing the death penalty if required to do or if asked to do so by law. And then he turns out he was lying and he's a pacifist and he always intended to just throw the death penalty out the window. So they have this buffer to prevent that one person from just being dishonest and
but
doing that.
That's on the prosecution for not doing a good jury selection, in my opinion.
But the vast majority are unanimous. Like I said, there's one, possibly two states that do that.
Yeah.
Now Florida is 8-12.
Yeah. And my position is I'm against the death penalty, but sometimes my objections are way less than in other cases, but as a principle, because there are simply too many innocent people who has gotten the death penalty and gotten killed. That's it.
Kimberly Moriarty asks, isn't there a death penalty trial in Florida after they vote? It goes straight to sentencing.
Yeah. Same jury.
Yep, it's the same jury. They bring people and they go, give your impact statements. You give your impact statements. What's the decision? I mean, it will happen very, very quickly.
Yeah, but do they know it? Because if they know it, this might take to Monday. Because let's get some rest before the penalty phase. Because sentencing phase or penalty phase, that can take a while as well.
Yeah, I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll have to see. We're assuming he's going to be found guilty. But, he could go home tonight.
In the Texas case, that guy who ended his mistress and 20-month-old kid, that penalty phase took 5 days.
Yeah. The Parkland shooting, that penalty phase, because there was so many people involved, that took almost a month and a half, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but this shouldn't take that long. I mean, they already know the facts.
Yeah, but I mean, just looking at the closing statements that we heard today, prosecution, I said she was boring as hell, but she connected the dots on her initial closing statement. I thought she put everything where it needed to be, walked everybody down the path. Like I said, I wish she would have done that from the beginning as they went along, and then just reiterated it rather than going, okay, now you've heard all this things in weird random orders and people saying stuff that makes you wonder why they're on the stand. Now let me tell you the story of why they were on the stand. She did it boringly, but she did it. And I thought she did a good job. The arguments were solid and sound. Good job. I would give the prosecution a good 6 out of 10 for the closing. It did what it needed to do, but it wasn't dynamic. Did you watch any of the prosecution's closing?
Yeah, a bit. The rebuttal was better, in my opinion. But
oh yeah. Well, then we had the defense lawyer. He was just shouty as usual. Everybody in chat turned on him. We all loved him for about the first 7 or 8 days of this. Then the last 7 or 8 days were kind of rough. But yeah, he was shouty, and he just pulled this whole piss thing. He left. I'll tell you what happened. He did this. He left his phone on the seat, got out to take a piss. For some reason, the people that he pays suddenly sped off, and then he got in a random car, and the only witness we have is the guy that was sleeping. And then he couldn't remember where his phone was, and he was looking for it. And there was all these other problems, and somebody said that if you don't call me, I'm going to shoot you. And he as the prosecutor said in her rebuttal, there's always going to be doubt. The question is whether it's reasonable. Maybe he didn't do it, but I heard nothing that would make what the prosecution said unreasonable.
Yeah, this is one of these cases where if the defense, there were possibilities of forensics expert they could have called but they have enough money to call them, but they have to get one. And I speculatively, they couldn't get one. But that's pure speculation on my part.
Yeah. The rebuttal, I thought the prosecution did a marvelous job on the rebuttal.
Yeah. It's
especially shutting him down with that text message.
Yeah. Almost, she knew the holes in the case. She knew this is probably what he's going to take up, and she was decently prepared for it to just boom. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was one of the things he was extra shouty about. They had to have gone there because Melly was the only one with the key to the house. I'll bet the guard at the guard shack even had a way to get into the home, but yeah, it's like he was the only one. He had to have been in there because they went in the house. He was the only one with the key, and she shut that whole shouty part down just with that one text that said, "Tell him to give you the key."
Yeah. Boom.
Boom.
Gone.
Done. Yeah. So I thought she did a phenomenal job of just saying, look, yeah, we did it. Agony Goose with the 5 pounds said she was fair, no emotion, just facts and evidence. Prefer her any day over Gravely. Well, everybody,
you could take
Satan's asshole over Gravely.
Yeah, you could take a roast beef sandwich, and it would still do better than Gravely. Well, not do better because he's a lying piece of garbage who is after conviction, not the truth. But a sandwich would do a better job coming to a fair conclusion.
Yeah. Well, we've got all the facts. Everything's in evidence.
Yep. Yeah.
That's it. That's kind of the case. It's all in front of you. And so far the final call on this is 64% say guilty, life in prison, 18% say death, and 18% say not guilty, go with God. What's law and crime saying? Let's see what's law and crime saying. I'm gonna say not guilty to fuck with their algorithm.
Yeah.
Okay, what they didn't ask what the audience thought. They said, what will the jury do? Never try to predict what the jury will do.
No. No.
67% say not guilty. 27% say guilty, 6% say hung jury. Now, again, everybody has to realize that currently there's 43,000 people, almost 44,000 people watching Law and Crime. Jesus, people, get on over here. We're way fucking cooler than them.
Yeah.
Holy cow. But I would get, clearly at least 67% of those 43,000 are Melly fans. So they're heavily stacked in front of.
Yeah, 3% troll and then Melly fans, and yeah.
Yeah, because they've got just reading their chat now, not guilty, free my boy. You're not the father, got me. I don't know what that means.
What?
We're tired to wait, so he just pees in random places. Guys, when's the verdict? That was a good one. Bro, free him at this point. Cuando io verdito. Another break.
He just
pisses in random places. And then there's, what the hell is that? Verdicts have taken 1 minute.
Or something?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
I pee in random spots, especially if I've been locked in the studio for a couple of hours, says another person. Stop calling whoever said that, blah, blah, blah. State caught Melly with his pants down. Oh, that's funny. Anyway, that's Law and Crime. 67% say not guilty. We're all rational, reasonable human beings over here. It's
Yeah.
happening with Harper. Says, can you tweet when you go live with the verdict, please, so we know? I will, of course. The question is, will I be awake when that happens?
Yeah,
It's 5 o'clock now. I doubt I'm going back to sleep.
That seems, yeah.
It's going to be a heavily caffeinated day. And so then we've got a couple of hours to go to on Friday evening, which, well, my Friday evening, everybody else's Friday morning. So Friday morning we'll be doing the Taylorship business motions. Then Saturday morning my time, Friday night US time, Danny on and Flux and I will be doing an unexplained stream on Flux's channel. Then I've got I'm having like 10 Russians over to my house for a big old party on Saturday night my time, and then I'm just gonna die on Sunday. And then it's Taylorship business all next week.
Yeah. Friday, the only thing I have is finally Friday and end of the work week casual stream. Just just talking about random stuff with random guests on my channel. Saturday is Jodi Arias Day, where we go through the Jodi Arias trial. We just finished the the state's case in chief, and we might do a bit of the motion because in the trial they had a 10-day break because apparently the state did some shady things which the defense objected to. We learned that because in the appeal, the appellate court wrote that this trial was riddled with misconduct from the prosecution, but not enough to overturn the verdict. And that's interesting. And that is why Saturday, we will try to find those motions from the defense to see what the actual, because of what I've seen from the prosecution state case in chief, it was good. So I don't know what the appellate court is really talking about. So that will be really interesting. And on Sunday, it is a Rumble only serial killer Sunday. We go, we have Jeffrey Dahmer, but we will also go through a bit of the latest serial killer, the Long Island alleged serial killer, what has been brought forward from the prosecution. But that is a Rumble only stream. So that's for the next few days.
Cool. Everybody make sure you're subscribed to Nicholas Starr.
Yeah. And next Friday, it's a fundraiser. It is. Yeah. Jeff, if you would be so nice to bring that up.
Mr. Grifty.
Yeah. Next Friday is Chat-Faced for Charity stream. You get the opportunity to get me chat-faced for when you donate to the Zachariah Anderson Defense Fund. And yeah, also, Jeff, you're very welcome to watch me get this. Captain Have Fun will join me in drinking, and Dave will be there. Solomon Anderson will be there, and a lot of other random people and lawyers and other. But yeah, next Friday, Chat-Faced for Charity.
Cool. And also this Sunday morning, this side of the world time, and Saturday night US time, it is our very own mod Digger 420's birthday stream. Digger, throw up that link there in chat if you so desire, please. You know that everybody go say hi to her for the birthday. So Digger, throw up your stream. Got a few other comments here to get through. Okay, we had this question, this thing about LG. Before LG was LG, they were Lucky Gold Star. And let's see here. There we go. Someone bloody random says Lucky Chem and Gold Star merged, and it was Lucky Chemical Co. Yeah, what? Not exactly. Lucky Chemical Co. They were actually one of the first companies on the Korean stock market after the end of the Japanese occupation. They started out as something, a few other companies. Then they developed into Lucky Chemical Company. Then they developed into like a cosmetics and hygiene thing. It was like Lucky Chemical and Fat Company or something like that. Then it developed, and then they just changed their name. The Lucky group, they changed their name to Lucky Gumsung, and Gumsung literally means gold star. Gum is gold and Sung is star. So Lucky just gave themselves a little gold star was what it was. And then it changed from Lucky Gumsung to Lucky Gold Star to LG. So they started out as Lucky Chemical Company back in the 50s and slowly worked their way there. So that's the history of LG. Spree Flex says, where's the weirdest place you've peed, Legal Vices and Nicholas? I actually know the answer to this immediately. Where's the weirdest place you've ever peed?
I have to remember if it is beyond the statute of limitations. But then again, I live on a farm, so I can pee anywhere I want as long as I am not my 40-acre land. But Stockholm subway trash can during rush hour, I think.
Oh, during rush hour? Okay, that adds a little bit to it. I think it was just like a random subway trash can. I'm like, well, who has it? Okay, during rush hour, that's different. Yeah. Mine, I distinctly remember this because my father, as I've mentioned several times, he was a foreman for a road construction company that moved road construction equipment from point A to point B. And so we're talking these gigantic, huge road construction vehicles that have gigantic tires, 6, 8 foot tall, 2.5 meter tall tires that are a good, meter and a half, a good 3, 4, 5 feet thick. And we created my father, he took one of these gigantic, I don't even know what it came from. I think it was like from a giant rock truck or something. This tire was probably 2.5 meters in diameter and about kind of this. I mean, it was really high. I don't even know exactly how high it was because I was a kid, but it was just a gigantic tire. And he put it on his side and he filled it up with sand. So it was like an elevated sandbox. And during the summers, to keep the spiders out of it and the rain out of it, we had one of the plastic swimming pools that kids play in that he would put upside down on top of the sandbox, and we just take that off when we played. There was one day with the sandbox, and I thought I would scare my dad, and so we had the plastic swimming pool in there. I saw his truck start to drive down the long empty road to our house, so I ran outside and I was gonna jump out from the sandbox and scare him, not thinking he'd probably knock me on my ass if I did, but I didn't think that far in advance. I'm just gonna scare Dad. So I climbed up on the sandbox, got on top of the sandbox underneath the plastic swimming pool, the turned upside down pool, and I waited. And for some reason, he parked his truck and he didn't get out of his truck for a very long time. And I had to pee. So the weirdest place I ever peed was about 4 feet off the ground in a giant sandbox made out of a gigantic transportation vehicle's tire covered by an upside down blue plastic children's swimming pool. That's the weirdest place I ever peed. It was a long story, but it's true. And if anyone ever says tastes like piss, I have a reference point from that exact experience because somehow that entered the picture that it was a weird experience. Agony Goose says, I need to check if I'm subbed to Flux. She's pretty cool. Flux is way cool. Flux is awesome. You need to subscribe to Flux. House of Flux, all one word, 2 X's, HOUSEOFFLUXX. House of Flux. You need to be subscribed to her because she is awesome.
Yeah.
Way up.
And anyone who has ever been on a boat, ship, rowboat, don't piss in low water against the wind.
Well, Koreans have a saying. It's sort of like useless. Don't do something stupid, or you don't do something useless. It's well, there's one variation which is lie back and spit, and the other one is lay back and piss, which is sort of the equivalent of don't piss in the wind. And I guess that's kind of all we got
Don't throw
going
up
here.
in the wind as well.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience.
Good
Swedish
old,
Finnish ferry are dangerous. Drinking with Finns are extremely dangerous. I can't. And I've been on an airplane from, this was in mid to late 90s. I was on a plane from Lviv, Ukraine to Germany. And somehow I ended up in a small propeller plane of sorts with 24 people, and it was me and 23 Ukrainian and Russian business people. They more or less had to wheel me out of that plane. And yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, so Finns, Russians, Ukrainians, don't even try. Don't even try. Not even as a pure blood Viking. Don't even try.
Well, Nicholas, I think we're gonna shut this down here, and we'll just it's starting to get a little. The sky's getting a little gray outside, so I think I'm just gonna
somehow
get ready for
Baker
work.
is still on. I don't know how. Yeah,
Baker. Should we go back to Baker again?
Yeah. I got the link.
Alrighty.
Do you want it?
Let's see. Go back to Baker. Everybody like and subscribe this stream, please. Like the stream, subscribe to me, subscribe to Nicholas, and we'll all be good. Let's see. Going here. We'll just redirect back to Baker. What's he doing?
Being drunk, I think. And Mo's feral youngest is currently on. Yeah. Valhalla is there. The expert is there. Dave is there. Josie is there. Yeah. Random bunch of people.
Let's see. Well, there's no one else that seems to be streaming right now to send people to. But so we'll just send you over to Broken Baker. Hang around.
Yeah.
See if you want to stick around. If not, bail. If so, just stick around and enjoy the weirdness that's going on there. We will.
Yeah.
We will. I'll take care of the dogs. Play with the dogs here. Wash some clothes. Do something stupid for a couple of hours to see what happens. If they do come back with a verdict, I will let you know immediately, and I will tweet out something, and we'll watch the verdict.
Yeah.
Other than that, it'll be Taylor's business later this evening.
Yeah.
So like, subscribe, do all that other stuff, refer it to friends, and there we go. Anything to say on the way out the door, Nick?
Don't maybe go there and say hi. Like and subscribe.
Alrighty. As for me, join me later tonight for the Taylor. Well, my night. Join me later, about 12. What are we doing? 17 hours from now. 17 hours from now will be Taylor's business, and if there's a verdict in the next couple of hours, we'll cover that. Mods, thank you for being here for second stream. You guys are awesome. And chat, Vice Squad chat is always the best chat. You guys rock. Thank you for being here. Thank you again for the additional support shown this morning. We may or may not be back until then. Whatever you do, whoever you do it with, etc., make sure you always enjoy your legal vices. Lorax.